Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final Roundup video for this course. Today, we're going to do a little bit of a recap of some questions, but also bring in some other examples and some other articles that we've found and that have been brought to our attention over the past week. And please keep in mind that this course is intended to kind of pique your interest and encourage everyone to learn a little bit more about this topic. So, thank you to everyone who's raised questions and brought together topics for this forum. And we really look forward to seeing how you all develop and take this course on further. So just a quick recap on what we were talking about this past week, recapping the term vernacular architecture, which is a distinctive and identifiable form of cultural tradition that belongs to a group of people. Vernacular heritage is important because it epitomizes the world's cultural diversity, represents people across the world in our many different ways to adapt to an environment, to suit our needs and our survival both in tangible and intangible ways. One of the other things that we're talking about is sustainability. So in terms of vernacular architecture, the challenge is how do we make these ordinary built forms sustainable in a modernized, globalized world? The concept of sustainability is widely accepted as follows. While we wish to meet the needs of the present generation, we do not want to compromise or jeopardize the ability of future generations to meet their needs and aspirations. So I think when we're talking about conservation and conservation's approach to vernacular heritage, there's a couple of good questions. Before we get into that, I do want to bring up one point. One topic which was raised by the learner Marina Ray, and here she posted about an article about Maloga City in Russia, which is a very old town, which was intentionally submerged under the Rybinsk Reservoir. So the town was essentially put underwater. And Marina Ray asks if we can help arrange the architectural committee and explore how we can restore it. So I think something that just want to raise is that this is exactly why we do this course, is for things like this to be brought up. And although our knowledge of this topic is limited, we have been doing a little bit of research, but I think something that would be very valuable is if you were interested as a learner, you're interested in this topic, please take a look at this. And I think we should think of this course as a catalyst for possible future action. So while it may not be realistic in some cases to intervene, at least we can use this course as a means for everyone to kind of understand these situations that are happening around the world and really be informed as an informed community, an educated community, so that as these type of situations arise in the future, people can be a little bit more educated about this. So I would encourage you, if you're interested, please take a look at this article. Please take a look at this this city and see if we can gather some support in the forum about this. Okay, so I'm going to move on here to one point that one of our learners, Javi Vidal Bernabeu, shared about his experience visiting the Fuji Miao in Nanjing, China. I think this is something that, as a student of architecture, as a designer, basically, when we visit these type of historical sites, these type of heritage sites, and we see what the existing condition is in these places as a result of tourism, it could go one of two ways. It could be rather successful, or it could be rather disappointing. I think what this learner discovered is that all of the buildings are emptied out. They have tourist shops, parking spots. The buildings are there, but for the most part, there's no soul. Mm-hmm. And I think this is something that we can see in a couple different places around the world and around Asia.
I mean, this is the learners brought up this case. Maybe it's common in mainland China around nowadays. I mean, people are trying to conserve the building, put it into an empty shell nowadays. But if we come back looking at Hong Kong, there's one case is the tile villages. I mean, there are, of course, it is nowadays becomes a tourist site, and during the weekend you can see people, lots of people coming all the way from Hong Kong Island and take the ships and all the way to tile villages. But we're not saying that the tourism is back. At the same time, when there come the commercials, it will generate profits and help to maintain the village. Think about it, if we don't have the tourism there, then how the village can be able, how can the villages is maintained? Right. So we're not saying that tourism is always bad. Sometimes it can help to maintain some, I would say, vernacular patterns of that village's life. So it is not always the good, or always it is not always the bad things. So
Can I play devil's advocate though for a second? This is something that I think has always been in my mind and maybe in some learners' mind is if the village itself cannot sustain itself on its original goal and on its original economy, then is keeping it alive via tourism artificial, or is it still valuable? Is something still valuable that we have tourism as a way to keep the city alive, to keep this village alive, to pump it with energy?
I think it depends on how. I mean, if we look at the tile village as an outsider, we saw it as a valuable. I mean, as an outsider. So, like one of the learner mentions about the topic of the dangerous of the romantic size. I mean, for instance, the people live there, they don't want to live there anymore. Right, they want to have a living in the modern apartment with modern facility, with electricity, with drainages, instead of living in those poor conditions. Right. So as an outsider, we sometimes we romanticize these places. So if the village cannot sustain or cannot maintain itself, and if we fake it, I mean the terms that you use, we fake it, that would meaningless. Right. So I think we should go back. We should go to the top of the level to look at that as a scholar or as an architect or as the government, how we can balance. Right. So I think that's the point.
Yeah,
I
agree.
think tourism provides another opportunity to promote.
Right. Yeah.
the
So
space.
at least tourism can provide an options, but we're not saying that it's the only option.
Or like taking Taiwan as an example. I have been there like few years ago, and then before the promotions, I didn't know that Taiwan has that kind of story. Even I'm a Hong Kong people.
Yeah. True.
Like this is a very good opportunity to promote the culture or the architecture to not even local people and also people outside Hong Kong. Maybe it's a good thing that tourism help the vernacular architecture, but the way is how we manage the tourism.
Right.
Yeah, I think going back to your devil's advocate, if commercially or using tourism to fill the vernacular landscape or vernacular setting is in some cases inevitable. So it's such as the street market in Hong Kong, for instance, in Central, where a lot of local Chinese people used to live, and then street markets in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 60s, they were selling meat and fish catered to those cuisines, catered to those people. And then eventually when there's a change in the demographic in the area, more foreigners, Westerners, good mix of global different cultures. And now slowly the things that are being sold in the shop also changes. And I think that very natural change is also an adaptation of how vernacular setting can evolve naturally. So I don't see that as being a negative in any way.
So
Yeah.
maybe you could argue that tourism is part of the natural evolution
I think so.
of a vernacular environment.
Part of that process.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I was just speaking before about the example of Hoi An in Vietnam, and about how that has evolved into a tourism hotspot. And you could argue they've done it in a right or the wrong way. Personally, it's a very exciting space. It's in a very exciting town. You've got restrictions, of course, on what people can and can't do within the old town, within the built environment there. But they've maintained it in such a way that it really is an exciting place, and you can go and you can experience a really different spot, a really different city from something else in Vietnam.
Yep.
So I think this is a good. Yep.
I don't know. Back to this case, the food smell,
Mm.
and then I think we shouldn't just look at the outcome. We should look at the political situation and environment in China.
Mm.
It's a many factors
Mm.
to driven to this kind of outcome.
Mm. Yeah, politics definitely brings in a different element when we talk about vernacular architecture. Okay, so I would like to basically conclude the course and conclude this Roundup video by expressing, on behalf of the team, our appreciation for all of you learners who have contributed once again, taking the time to really put down some valuable thoughts. Many of you have shared some very personal stories and anecdotes, and we really do appreciate that. It's quite inspiring for us as part of the educational side to see this interaction. And last but not least, I would really like to extend our sincere gratitude and thanks to our mentor and our teacher, Professor Lung, who's actually sitting over here. He's been here every week, and you haven't seen his face. He's very humble, but he has really driven this course, and he has brought all of us together to keep this course going and to educate. And so I'd like to thank him for his time and for what he's done for this topic. And so thank you very much. One last thing is we have an article that we'd like to share. You can see the link. It's by Sean Griffiths. You can find it on DZine, talking about architectural meaning. Just a suggested reading. I think it's quite interesting, in some ways relatable to what we've talked about here in the course, and I encourage you, if you're interested, to take a look at it and discuss as you see fit. So on behalf of everyone here, thank you again, and hope to see you in the future.